Hey, hello everybody. It's Gary Lucas here at 10:30 p.m. from the West Village of Manhattan live, playing for you tonight. Quite a day with Carolyn. We were out in Westport, Connecticut, sailing with my friend Mark Balin and his lovely wife, and some special guests, George Gilbert and his lovely wife, and Nancy Holson and Sherry Gilbert made the whole trip worthwhile with scintillating conversation. I just sort of was along for the ride, and Caroline proved to be quite a sailor herself. So. Okay. And that was Nino Rota's theme from La Strada, Federico Fellini, one of my favorite films. It was shown a couple of times in the last year or so on TCM, which is pretty much my go-to channel these days. I don't know, people are digging all these streaming shows. Caroline is watching a plethora of streaming shows, and me, I'd rather read books, to tell you the truth, but I have a lot of time for classic cinema and new cinema. I don't know, basically films and literature, my main forte. Okay, so I want to alert you to a new CD that's just come out on the Mighty Quinn label, the Great Lost Gods and Monsters live album, featuring the classic lineup, one of the best lineups. This goes back to, I think, 2006. And then the band had Jerry Harrison on keyboards from Talking Heads, Ernie Brooks from the Modern Lovers, and Arthur Russell, and some other great bands. He's been a longtime mainstay on bass. Billy Ficca from television on drums, Jason Candler on saxophone, and Joe Hendel on trombone. And this is a session from the CMJ College Media Journal, with usually, I'm not sure if it's still in operation, but back in the day, once a year, maybe over a couple of days, couple of nights in town, there would be 40, 50 acts playing at various clubs, showcasing. And so this is what that was. They caught us in the showcase. And it's extremely well recorded, beautiful live album, I gotta say. And you should check it out. It just came out on Mighty Quinn. And I want to thank Jerry Roach very much for getting this out. It was a long time coming, but definitely worth it. A beautiful package with liner notes by my old friend Robert Duncan, who says very nice things about the band. And actually, now we have a kind of a reunion. We haven't played in a long time as a band, nearly a year, but we will be at Lincoln Center in the Atrium August 18th. It's a Thursday night coming up in about 3 weeks. And the lineup will be Ernie Brooks, and Richard Dworkin has played for many a year in the band. We took him to Australia a couple of years ago for a Tim and Jeff Buckley tribute. And augmenting the lineup, there are 3 great artists. Allison Clancy, who I just played with up at MIT not too long ago, she was doing beautiful dance interpretations of Richard Wagner, Overture to the Flying Dutchman, my arrangement for solo guitar. You have to hear that. Maybe the next session I'm going to set the pedals up again and move back in that space. But I'm enjoying playing solo acoustic because I haven't played it a lot in a while, although I had a great show the other night doing finger-picking stuff, but on the electric. And that was with another excellent young singer, Angelica Zolo. But I digress. Richard Barone will be at the show, along with Allison Clancy, fantastic singer, solo artist, who was in the band lineup after Jeff Buckley left, must be about 93, 94, for several years. And he's on some of my older albums, Improve the Shining Hour, if I'm not mistaken. That's one of them. And last but not least, the curator of the festival, Jared Michael Nickerson, who has the distinction of being the very first member of Gods and Monsters. When I formed the band in 1989, he was my draft pick. He was my first choice as somebody I wanted to play with. I love this guy's bass playing. He's a superb player, but, just as importantly, he's a great guy, a great person. And he's been quite active now, especially since the death of Greg Tate. who was a mainstay in the local scene, especially with the Black Rock Coalition bands. And Jared led one of these bands. And both of them were in a band together, Burnt Sugar, and Jared has carried on the legacy of that great band who, I remember seeing them back in their earliest incarnation, but he was always like a central figure in it. So Jared will be there. I guess I've mentioned everybody in that lineup. And it's with two other excellent bands, Ivan Julian's band and The Velt, one of the first Black Rock Coalition bands I remember seeing. There was a 2-night stand at CBGB's somewhere around 1986 or 87. I remember getting DAT tapes of that show from Hilly, who ran CB's, and through the auspices of Greg Tate, who was one of the organizers, and some just amazing couple of nights of music with my friend Jean-Paul Borelli, for instance, played there. Vernon Reid, of course, was a highlight. On and on. Good stuff. So, anyway, Jared is curating this festival. It's called the Turn It Up Festival. So if you're in the vicinity, please come check us out at Lincoln Center Atrium, which is 65th Street and Broadway. It's an indoors gig in a big hall, and it should be a lot of fun, needless to say. And then I'm going off to Holland for a festival in Groningen called the Noorderzone Festival, and I'm playing with this Orson Welles rare silent film made in the sound era, actually, in the style of Buster Keaton, but it's a really surrealistic farce. I cannot describe it with enough superlatives, and it's called Too Much Johnson, based on a stage play from the 19th century, an American farce. And actually the story is Orson Welles was going to do a theatrical production that he was going to direct in Connecticut. And he had the idea to show a film as part of this. As a multimedia thing, it might be one of the earliest attempts of multimedia, albeit it didn't actually take place. And I don't think the stage was big enough to accommodate the film screen in the final analysis. In any case, he worked on this film. A lot of it was shot in Long Island and New York City. They've had a couple of palm trees set up on the beach in Long Island that substituted for a scene in Cuba at the end of the film. I don't want to give too much away, but you really have to see it, and you have to see it with my live score. So this will be the European premiere of that, August 22nd, in Groningen, Netherlands. One of my favorite cities to play. I like playing them all, but I go way back playing in that vicinity to my earliest touring days solo. This must be, now we're talking about, my gosh, 1986, 87, maybe. I played at a festival. Actually, a lot of my very first album, Skeleton at the Feast, well, at least, 3 or 4 of the tracks recorded live in Groningen. So, yeah, I have a bonding with that. What else can I tell you? A lot of activity this week. I've recorded quite a few, at least 2.5 hours worth of music with Lucas Ligeti, great percussionist and composer, for an album that we're going to put out hopefully early next year under the auspices, under the group name Lucas and Lucas. And I go way back with this guy, and we have played together. He actually subbed in Gods and Monsters on 1 or 2 occasions, if I'm not mistaken, when Billy was unavailable back in the day. And then we just did a duo gig at the New School at the Stone, which went really well. So we went in and recorded quite a bit of improvised music and some pieces as well. And I can't wait to mix this thing and have you hear it. It's very exciting music. So I don't know. I mean, every day has been something or other in the music sphere in the last week or so. Things are really popping a lot. And then, of course, today going up to Westport was a treat. So good to get out of New York and chill, and especially what better way to do it than a sailing fun trip out there in the harbor. We went pretty far out there with Mark and company. And okay, here's a book that I just came to my attention, which I want to tell you about. Okay, and this is called Hammer Glamour. Okay. This is a book devoted to the female scream queens of the Hammer horror films that flourished in, Hammer goes way back actually to the 50s, but was a terrific independent film studio that launched a whole cycle starting about 1964, if I'm not mistaken, where they reanimated Frankenstein's monster with Christopher Lee as the monster and Peter Cushing as Dr. Frankenstein, and thus began a horror cycle that included a resuscitation of Dracula, the Mummy, a lot of the classic Universal characters, but with a very fine, ironic, and polished and slick twist. I love their films so much, and part of the delight and charm of the films are the female leads. I can mention a few names here you may know. For instance, Carolyn Monroe, who actually has had quite a great career outside of Hammer, too, and did a lot of filming for various directors over the years. Carolyn Monroe, Martine Beswick, who, if I'm not mistaken, was actually a girlfriend at one time of Chris Blackwell of Island Records, who has a book out that I must read. His autobiography has come out recently. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm going to. Who else? Madeline Smith, who my friend Mike Barnes admitted to having had a crush on when he was a young lad. And check out Mike's book on prog rock, A New Day Yesterday, which got a publication recently in the U.S. And, good on you, Mike. Who else can I name? There's so many. Anyway, this book is chock-a-block with great glamour portraits of all of these ladies. And there's a website, too, on Facebook, which is a really good Hammer user group, which features, Raquel Welch was in a few of them, particularly, I can tell you, 1 Million Years BC, their remake of that, which is kind of enjoyable film with her running around in a doeskin bikini, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, a lot of beautiful women, and the whole Hammer vibe is something that I love so much. Back in the day when I was a young shaver, it was American International Pictures and Hammer. Those were my favorite obsession in cinema, and I'd see anything that had pretty much their stamp on it when it would come to my hometown of Syracuse, New York. And particularly, they hold up, the Hammer films especially, very well indeed. A lot of them would come out on Blu-ray if you're a collector, or just curious to see what all the fuss was about. So, I think now that's about a whole half hour's worth of playing and chatter. Thank you for tuning in again on Saturday night. I am happy to be here to play. I frankly am a little bit fried from the day trip and sailing and to and from Westport, but always good to play for you. And I will try and stick to my guns and be here next Saturday in the electric position over on that side of the living room. Until such time, take care, be well, and check out this new CD, The Great Lost Gods and Monsters, which is probably available. It's coming out, I think, on vinyl as well, not in the not-too-distant future. And there's other stuff on the way. I was talking to Peter Stanfill just today about getting together to prep for We're going to do a show at Bowery Electric here in New York, September 14th, which I believe is a Wednesday. And we haven't played together in quite some time, but the occasion is a reissue of the Dutels' No Knowledge of Music Required album, which Mark Bingham produced down in New Orleans some years ago, augmented with bonus tracks. Always fun to play with Peter. Check him out in any format, and any incarnation of his work. I got really hooked on his voice and his persona going back to the mid-'60s and the Holy Modal Rounders, which was a great aggregation with Steve Weber and then some other fine musicians. But his work extends even to the Fugs with Ed Sanders. He and Weber were part of that group when they first came out. Oh, anyway, great talking to you. Great seeing you. Love you guys. Let's take a little look as to what's going on out here. See if you can see any of this stuff. I think I have to reverse the angle now. Well, anyway, I hope you get a glimpse of the Hudson. It's one of those steamy New York nights. We're going into August shortly. And, yeah, it's a beautiful, inspirational evening. I hope you're having fun wherever you are. Love to you guys, and I'll see you next week.